He attacked first in class. She slaughtered him mercilessly. The Galactic Combat Academy floated in orbit around a gas giant called Prime. It was a massive station, built over 3,000 years ago by the Empire when they still ruled most of the known galaxy. Now it served as neutral ground, a place where young warriors from dozens of different species came to learn the art of war from the best instructors in the universe. The station was home to nearly 50,000 students at any given time. They came from worlds of ice and fire, from planets where gravity crushed bones and moons where you could jump 100 feet in the air. They were reptilian, mammalian and crystalline, gaseous and solid. Some breathed oxygen, others breathed methane, and a few didn't breathe at all. Among all these strange and powerful beings, the humans were considered the weakest. There were only 12 humans at the Academy that year. Earth had only discovered faster-than-light travel 43 years ago, which made humanity the youngest spacefaring species in the galactic community by a margin of several thousand years. Most of the other species looked at humans the way humans might look at children who had wandered into an adult conversation. They were cute, perhaps, but clearly out of their depth. Morgan didn't care what they thought. She was 24 years old, born in a small town in Montana, raised on a cattle ranch where she learned to ride horses before she learned to read. She had joined the United States Army at 18, made it through Ranger School at 21, and had been selected for the Galactic Exchange Program at 23 after demonstrating scores in tactical thinking and adaptive combat that the selection committee had never seen before. She was 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighed about 140 pounds, and had auburn hair that she kept in a tight braid according to military regulations. Her eyes were gray, the color of storm clouds, and they had a quality that made some people uncomfortable. They were watchful eyes, patient eyes, the eyes of someone who was always calculating angles and distances and odds. She sat in the back row of classroom 7 on the morning that would change everything. The room was shaped like an amphitheater, with curved rows of seats descending toward a central platform where instructors delivered their lectures. The seats were designed to accommodate dozens of different body types, which meant they were uncomfortable for everyone. Beside her sat her only real friend at the academy, a fellow human named Danny Cole. He was 26, a former Navy SEAL from San, with dark skin and a quick smile that hid a mind like a steel trap. The two of them had bonded during orientation week when they realized they were the only ones who understood each other's jokes. Today's class was Advanced Combat Theory, taught by a named commander. They were a reptilian species, cold-blooded and logical, known throughout the galaxy for their military academies and their complete lack of emotional expression. Commander was 7 feet tall, covered in dark green scales, and had eyes like pools of liquid gold that never seemed to blink. The commander stood on the central platform, manipulating a holographic display that showed troop movements from a famous battle. His translator implant converted his hissing speech into standard galactic, the common language of the academy. Took notes on her, her fingers moving quickly across the touch interface. She had learned more about warfare in the past 6 months than she had in her entire military career on Earth. The galaxy had been fighting wars for millions of years, and the accumulated knowledge was staggering. But she had also noticed something that the other students seemed to miss. For all their advanced technology and ancient wisdom, most of these species fought wars in predictable ways. They had rules, traditions, expectations about how combat should be conducted. They had honor codes that limited their options. They had assumptions that had never been challenged because everyone followed the same assumptions. Humans didn't have those limitations. Humans had spent their entire history fighting each other, and they had learned that the only rule of war was that there were no rules. The lecture ended, and Commander raised one clawed hand for attention. "Before you leave, I have an announcement. Tomorrow's class will be practical assessment, live combat simulations in the neural arena. You will be paired randomly, and your performance will count toward your final evaluation. A murmur ran through the classroom. The neural arena was legendary. It used advanced technology to connect students' minds directly to a virtual battlefield. Everything felt real: the pain, the fear, the exhaustion. The only difference was that death in the arena wasn't permanent, but the experience of dying was. Some students had been known to drop out of the academy after a bad session in the arena. The psychological trauma was no joke. Felt Danny shift beside her. He leaned over and whispered, "You ready for this?" "Been ready," she replied. After class, they walked together through the station's corridors toward the human quarters. The academy was designed like a small city, with residential sections, training facilities, recreational areas, and everything else that 50,000 young warriors might need. The architecture was in style, all sharp angles and dark metal, lit by strips of bioluminescent material that gave everything an eerie blue glow. They passed students from a dozen different species. A group of warriors took up most of the corridor, their massive bodies forcing everyone else to squeeze past. They were the dominant military power in this sector of the galaxy, a species of apex predators who had conquered dozens of worlds through sheer physical superiority. They stood nearly 8 feet tall on average, with bodies that seemed to be made of shadow and muscle, and faces that belonged in nightmares. One of them, larger than the others, deliberately stepped into his path as she tried to pass. "Human," he said, his voice like rocks grinding together. "Move aside. Prey does not walk in front of predators." Stopped, she looked up at her gray eyes meeting his black ones without flinching. "I'm not blocking your path," she said calmly. "There's plenty of room for both of us." The slips pulled back from his teeth. They were serrated like saw blades designed for tearing flesh. "You dare speak to me? Do you know who I am?" "Should I?" The corridor had gone quiet. Other students were stopping to watch, forming a loose circle around the confrontation. Could feel Danny tensing beside her, ready to fight if necessary. He leaned down until his face was inches from hers. His breath smelled like rotting meat. "I am," he said, "heir to the third house of the Dominion. My family has ruled the outer territories for 10,000 years. My ancestors hunted your kind for sport before your species learned to make fire." Didn't step back. "That's nice. My ancestors hunted mammoths with pointy sticks and won. What's your point?" For a moment she thought might attack her right there in the corridor. His muscles tensed, his claws extended slightly, and a low growl rumbled in his chest. Then one of his companions put a hand on his shoulder and said something in their native language. Snarled but stepped back. "Tomorrow," he said in the arena, "I will request that you be my opponent, and I will show everyone what happens when prey forgets its place." He pushed past her and continued down the corridor, his entourage following. Watched him go, her expression unchanged. "That was either very brave or very stupid," Danny said when they were out of earshot. "Probably both," admitted. She started walking again and Danny fell into step beside her. "You know he's going to try to hurt you, right? The arena lets you set the pain receptors anywhere from 0 to full. He'll max them out. He'll make it as brutal as possible." "I know. And you're okay with that." Was quiet for a moment. They passed through a security checkpoint, flashing their identification badges at the automated scanner, and entered the human residential section. It was smaller than the areas assigned to more established species, just a cluster of rooms around a common area, but it felt like home. "Do you know why I volunteered for this program?" finally asked. "Because you're crazy." Besides that, she stopped outside her quarters and turned to face him. "I volunteered because humanity needs to prove itself. We're the new kids here. Everyone looks at us and sees weakness. They see small bodies and short and no natural weapons. They don't take us seriously. So you're going to let an 8-foot tall killing machine beat the crap out of you to prove a point." Smiled, it wasn't a friendly smile. Who said anything about letting him beat me? She entered her quarters and let the door close behind her, leaving Danny standing in the corridor with a worried expression on his face. The human quarters were Spartan but functional. A bed, a desk, a small bathroom, a window that looked out at the swirling clouds of the gas giant below. Sat on the edge of her bed and pulled up the Academy database on her. She searched for everything she could find about their history, their biology, their fighting styles, their famous warriors and battles. She read for hours, taking notes, analyzing, planning. They were impressive, she had to admit. They were faster than humans, stronger than humans, more durable than humans. Their night vision was exceptional, their reflexes were tuned for hunting, and their natural armor could stop small-caliber projectiles. In a straight fight, a would tear a human apart, but had no intention of fighting straight. She found what she was looking for buried in a medical database. Physiology, the weaknesses that no one talked about. Their joints were strong but inflexible. Their armor plates had gaps. Their eyesight, while excellent in the dark, was actually inferior to human vision in bright light. They were susceptible to sudden temperature changes. Their reaction time, while fast, followed predictable patterns because their neural architecture was optimized for specific types of threats. They were apex predators, yes, but they had evolved on a world where they had no real competition. They had never needed to be clever because they had always been the biggest and strongest thing around. Humans had evolved differently. On Earth, humans were never the strongest or the fastest. They survived by being smart, by working together, by adapting to every environment, by turning their weaknesses into advantages. They invented tools and weapons and tactics. They learned to fight dirty because fighting fair meant dying. Spent the night preparing, she barely slept. When morning came, she was ready. The neural arena was located in the heart of the station, a massive chamber filled with hundreds of interface pods arranged in rows. Each pod was a sleek black oval, large enough to hold even the biggest species, equipped with neural connectors that would link a student's mind directly to the simulation. Arrived early. The chamber was already filling with students and instructors, the air buzzing with anticipation. Combat assessments were always popular spectator events, and word had spread about the confrontation in the corridor. She found Danny waiting for her near the human section of the observation gallery. He handed her a cup of coffee, synthesized but close enough to the real thing. "You didn't sleep," he said. "Didn't need to." "Listen, I've been thinking. Maybe you should just throw the fight, let him win quickly. It's not worth getting hurt over pride." Took a sip of the coffee. "It's not about pride." "Then what's it about?" She looked at him, and something in her eyes made him take a step back. "It's about survival," she said. "Not mine, humanity's. Every species in this galaxy judges us by what they see, and what they see is weakness. They see prey. If I let beat me, if I show fear, if I give them any reason to believe that humans can be pushed around, then every human who comes after me will have to deal with the consequences. We'll never be taken seriously. We'll never be equals. We'll always be the cute little primates from the primitive death world." She finished the coffee and handed the cup back to Danny. "But if I win," she continued, "if I beat their best warrior in front of everyone, then suddenly humans become something else. We become a species that can't be ignored. We become dangerous, and dangerous species get respect." Danny stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a short, surprised sound. "You're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for humanity. Someone has to." A tone sounded through the chamber, indicating that the assessment was about to begin. Commander's voice echoed from the speakers, calling the first pair of combatants. Moved to the preparation area and changed into her combat suit, a lightweight garment that would interface with the neural pod. Around her, other students were doing the same, stretching, warming up, focusing their minds. She could feel eyes on her. Students from a dozen species were watching her, whispering to each other. She heard her name mentioned several times, always in tones of disbelief or mockery. The human female who thought she could fight, how amusing, how pathetic. Let them watch, she thought, let them learn. The first several matches went by quickly. A defeated in a battle that lasted less than 3 minutes. Two fought each other to a draw. One of his companions demolished a crystalline being called a Tellurite with casual brutality. Then Commander's voice called out the pairing that everyone had been waiting for. Of the third house, Dominion versus Morgan, United Earth Alliance. The chamber went quiet. Thousands of eyes turned toward as she rose from her seat and walked toward the neural pods. On the other side of the chamber was doing the same, his massive form moving with predatory grace. They met at the center, where Commander waited beside two open pods. The golden eyes moved between them, his expression as unreadable as always. The parameters said, the scenario will be urban combat generated environment, no weapon restrictions. Victory conditions are incapacitation, surrender, or death. The defeated combatant will respawn in the observation room. He paused, looking at. You have requested that pain receptors be set to maximum. Is this correct? It is, said. I want the prey to feel every moment of its defeat. And you, Morgan, do you accept these terms? Looked at, there was grinning, his serrated teeth gleaming. He was completely confident. He had probably never lost a fight in his life. I accept, she said. Very well, enter the pods. Climbed into her pod and lay back on the soft surface. Technicians approached, attaching the neural connectors to her temples, checking the readouts, ensuring everything was functioning properly. Through the pod's transparent cover, she could see settling into his own pod across the chamber. He was still grinning. The cover slid closed, sealing her in darkness. For a moment, she was aware of her body, her heartbeat, her breathing. Then the neural interface activated and the world dissolved. She opened her eyes in a ruined city. The buildings around her were alien in design, twisted spires and impossible angles that seemed to defy gravity. The sky was purple, lit by 3 moons of different sizes. The air smelled of smoke and ozone. Debris littered the streets, overturned vehicles and collapsed walls and scattered equipment. Took a moment to assess her situation. She was standing in what looked like a marketplace, surrounded by abandoned stalls and broken merchandise. Her body felt normal, which was one of the strangest things about the neural arena. Even though she knew this was a simulation, everything felt absolutely real. The ground under her feet, the weight of her equipment, the slight breeze on her face. She checked a pulse rifle, standard military issue, with enough power for about 50 shots. A combat knife, 12 inches of monomolecular edged steel. A small pack with medical supplies and emergency rations. Standard urban combat gear. Somewhere in this city, was checking his own equipment and getting ready to hunt her. Most people in her situation would find a defensive position, set up an ambush, wait for the enemy to come to them. It was the logical approach when facing a physically superior opponent. Wasn't most people. She started moving immediately, not away from the expected direction of attack, but toward it. She kept to the shadows, using the ruined buildings for cover, her footsteps silent on the debris-strewn ground. She had practiced moving quietly since childhood, hunting with her father in the Montana wilderness. The skills transferred well to urban environments. As she moved, she studied the terrain. The buildings here were made of some kind of alloy, strong but brittle if struck at the right angle. The streets were laid out in a rough grid pattern, with plenty of choke points and ambush positions. The lighting was uneven, bright in some areas and dark in others, which would affect visibility differently for human and eyes. She heard before she saw him. The wasn't bothering with stealth. Why would he? In his mind, he was the hunter and she was the prey. Hunters didn't sneak around. They walked boldly, confident in their superiority. His voice echoed through the ruined streets, calling out to her. "Human, where are you hiding? Come out and face your death with dignity. I promise to make it quick if you do not run." Said nothing. She had positioned herself on the third floor of a partially collapsed building, looking down at the street where was walking. He was even more impressive in this environment, his dark form moving like a shadow among shadows, his claws leaving gouges in the pavement. She could have shot him right now. The pulse rifle had the range, and she had a clear line of sight. But one shot wouldn't be enough to bring down not even a headshot. Their skulls were reinforced, designed to survive impacts that would kill most other species. All she would do was reveal her position and make him angry. She needed a different approach. Backed away from the window and moved through the building, heading for the far side. She dropped down to street level through a hole in the floor, landing silently in an alley. Then she started circling, moving around the block, getting behind. The had stopped calling out. He was standing in the middle of an intersection, his head moving slowly as he scanned the surrounding buildings. He was listening, she realized, waiting for her to make a sound. She made one, deliberately. She kicked a piece of debris, sending it clattering across the pavement on the opposite side of the street from where she was hiding. His head snapped toward the sound. He charged, covering the distance in seconds, his claws tearing through the air where he expected to find her. He found nothing. Was already moving, circling back around, using the sound of his charge to cover her own footsteps. She came up behind him while he was still looking for her, and she threw her knife. Not at him, at the structural support of the building beside him. The knife, monomolecular edge cutting through the weakened metal like butter, severed a critical joint. The building groaned, looked up just in time to see 3 tons of debris coming down on his head. He was fast, incredibly fast. He dove forward, rolling through the impact zone, and most of the debris missed him. But not all of it. A chunk of metal the size of a human torso caught him across the back, staggering him, driving him to one knee. Was there before he could recover. She hit him from behind, not with her fists, but with a piece of rebar she had picked up from the rubble. She swung it like a baseball bat, aiming for the back of his knee where his armor plates didn't quite meet. The impact was tremendous, sending vibrations up her arms, and she felt something crack under the blow. Roared in pain and spun, his arms sweeping through the space where she had been. But she wasn't there anymore. She had ducked under the swing and rolled away, putting distance between them. There was limping now, his right leg compromised. Black blood dripped from the wound. His eyes, when they found her, were filled with something she hadn't seen before. Confusion, and the first hint of fear. "You," he growled, "how did you do that?" Didn't answer. She was already moving again, circling, forcing him to turn on his wounded leg. In her hands was a new piece of debris, a twisted metal rod about 2 feet long. Not elegant, but it would do. Tried to charge her, but his leg gave out after 2 steps. He stumbled, catching himself on a broken wall, and was there, the metal rod crashing against his elbow. Another crack, another roar of pain, and his arm went limp. She was inside his reach now, too close for him to bring his full strength to bear. Her fists and elbows and knees became weapons, striking at the gaps in his armor, targeting nerves and joints, following patterns she had memorized from her research the night before. The swung at her with his remaining good arm, and she let him hit her. It was a calculated risk. The blow caught her across the ribs, and even at partial power it was like being hit by a truck. She felt bones crack, felt pain explode through her chest, felt her body go flying across the street. But she had expected it, she had braced for it. And as she flew, she twisted her body, reaching out, grabbing his wrist and pulling him off balance. They hit the ground together, rolling through the debris. Ended up on top, straddling his chest, her hands around his throat. Her ribs were screaming, every breath was agony, but she didn't let go. Bucked and thrashed, trying to throw her off. He was still stronger than her, even wounded, but she had leverage and position. She squeezed, cutting off the blood flow to his brain, and held on. "Yield," she said through gritted teeth. "Never," he snarled. His good arm came up, claws reaching for her face. Let go of his throat with one hand and grabbed his wrist, twisting it at an angle that human joints couldn't achieve, but joints could, barely. He howled as the joint hyperextended. "Yield," she said again. "I will kill you, human. I will tear out your spine and wear it as a trophy. I will eat your heart while it still beats. I will." She broke his wrist. The snap was clearly audible. "Yield," stared up at her. His face was covered in his own blood, his body broken in half a dozen places, his pride shattered along with his bones. He was utterly defeated, and they both knew it. But he couldn't bring himself to say the word. His entire culture was built on strength, on dominance, on never showing weakness. To yield to a human, to a prey species, would be to admit that everything he believed was wrong. Saw it in his eyes. The stubborn, stupid pride that would rather die than admit defeat. "Fine," she said. She retrieved her knife from where it had fallen, grabbed by the hair, and cut his throat. The simulation ended. Gasped as she was ejected from the neural interface, her body jerking against the restraints of the pod. Her ribs ached with phantom pain, her hands were shaking, and her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The pod cover slid open, and she sat up slowly, blinking against the bright lights of the neural arena. Around her, thousands of students were staring in absolute silence. Even the instructors looked stunned. On the other side of the chamber's pod was opening. The stumbled out, his whole body trembling. He looked like he might vomit. The experience of dying, even a simulated death, was not something anyone got used to. Their eyes met across the chamber, expected to see hatred there, or rage, or a promise of revenge. Instead, she saw something much more interesting. She saw respect. Commander's voice broke the silence. "Victory to Morgan, United Earth Alliance. Combat time, 7 minutes 14 seconds. The chamber erupted. Students were shouting, arguing, demanding to know how this was possible. The contingent looked like they had been collectively punched in the stomach. The other humans, the small group of 12 who had been watching from the gallery, were cheering like they had just won a war. Which, in a way, they had. Climbed out of her pod and walked toward the exit, ignoring the chaos around her. Danny met her halfway, his face split by the biggest grin she had ever seen. "That was the most insane thing I have ever witnessed," he said. "You absolute maniac. You beautiful, crazy, terrifying maniac." Allowed herself a small smile. "I told you, fighting isn't about strength, it's about not losing. You didn't just not lose, you destroyed him. You made one of the deadliest warriors in the sector look like a clumsy child. He underestimated me. They all underestimate us. That's why we're going to win." They walked out of the arena together, leaving behind a room full of beings who would never look at humans the same way again. The aftermath of the fight was immediate and dramatic. Within an hour, every student at the academy had seen a recording of the battle. Within a day, it had spread to the wider galactic network. Within a week, it had become one of the most viewed pieces of content in the history of the interstellar information grid. Morgan, the human female who had killed an heir in single combat. The analysis programs broke down her every move, studying her tactics, trying to understand how she had done it. Military experts from a dozen species offered their opinions. Some said she had been lucky. Some said the simulation must have been rigged. Some said had been overconfident and made stupid mistakes. But a few, the smart ones, recognized the truth. The human had outthought her opponent. She had prepared, she had planned, she had exploited every weakness, and she had fought with a ruthlessness that most species reserved for wars of extermination. And she had done it all with a calm, cold efficiency that suggested this wasn't her first time killing someone. The Dominion sent a formal protest to the Academy administrators, demanding that the fight be invalidated. When that failed, they demanded that be expelled. When that also failed, they went quiet, which was somehow more worrying than their complaints. Ignored all of it. She went to her classes, completed her assignments, and trained in the gym with the same focused intensity as always. If anything, the attention seemed to annoy her more than please her. Danny found her in the training room 3 days after the fight, working through a complex series of martial arts forms that she had learned on Earth. He watched for a while, admiring the precision of her movements, the way she flowed from one stance to another like water. "You've become famous," he said when she paused for water. "I've become a target." "Same thing in this galaxy." He sat down on a bench near the wall. "I've been hearing things. They are not happy. They're talking about revenge." "Let them talk." "I'm serious. These people don't play by our rules. They might not be able to touch you here at the Academy, but eventually we're going to graduate. Eventually we'll be out there." He gestured vaguely at the ceiling, indicating the vast galaxy beyond, without the protection of neutral ground. Set down her water and looked at him. "I know, I've been thinking about that. And I've decided that I need to make sure the next fight ends the same way as the last one." She smiled, and there was something sharp in it. "They can come after me if they want. I'll be ready." One woman against the entire Dominion. That's not brave, that's suicidal. "I'm not planning to fight them alone. I'm planning to make them afraid to fight at all." Before Danny could ask what she meant by that, the door to the training room opened. Commander stood in the entrance, his golden eyes fixed on. "Morgan," he said, "come with me. The Academy director wishes to speak with you." Grabbed a towel and wiped the sweat from her face. "About what?" "About your future, and the future of your species at this institution." She exchanged a glance with Danny, then followed the commander out of the room. The Academy director's office was at the very top of the station, a domed chamber with walls that were entirely transparent, offering a panoramic view of the gas giant and the stars beyond. The director herself was a being unlike any had encountered before, one of the ancient races that had helped found the galactic community millions of years ago. Director appeared to be made of light, a vaguely humanoid form that shifted and flickered like a candle flame. Her voice, when she spoke, seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Morgan, please sit." Sat in one of the chairs arranged before the director's desk, which was itself a piece of crystalline art that probably cost more than most planetary economies. "I assume you know why you're here," said. "I have some guesses." "You have caused quite a stir. The Dominion is one of our most important member states. Their financial contributions to this academy are substantial. They are not accustomed to being embarrassed." "With respect, Director, I didn't embarrass them. I beat them. There's a difference." The light that form's face seemed to flicker, which might have been a smile. "Indeed, and that is precisely why we are having this conversation." The director leaned forward, or at least her form shifted in a way that suggested leaning forward. "I have been reviewing your records, your performance in classes, your scores in simulations, your psychological evaluations. And I find myself impressed. You are a remarkably capable individual. More importantly, you are a remarkably dangerous individual in the best possible sense of the word." Wasn't sure how to respond to that, so she waited. "Humanity is young," continued. "Your species has barely taken its first steps into the galaxy. Most of the established powers consider you irrelevant at best, a nuisance at worst. They in particular have been advocating for decades that humans should be excluded from galactic society entirely." "Why?" "Because they see you as prey, weak, soft, short-lived, unworthy of sharing the stars with true predators." The director's light pulsed. "But they have made a mistake that predators often make. They have confused physical strength with true power, and true power has nothing to do with muscles and claws. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed a star map, thousands of points of light representing inhabited systems. A small cluster near one edge was highlighted in blue. This is human space. 53 systems, settled over the past 40 years, a tiny fraction of the galaxy. The display zoomed out, showing the vastness of the interstellar community. And this is everything else. Millions of inhabited worlds, thousands of spacefaring species, civilizations that have existed longer than your entire planet has been capable of supporting life. Studied the map. The blue cluster was barely visible against the immensity of the rest. The question, said, is what role humanity will play in this galaxy. Will you remain small and insignificant, forever looking up at your betters? Will you be absorbed by larger powers, your identity lost in the vastness of alien cultures? Or will you carve out a place for yourselves, earn the respect and fear of those who would dismiss you? I know which one I'd prefer, said. As do I, the director dissolved the display and leaned back. That is why I am offering you an opportunity, a chance to prove that humanity belongs among the stars, a chance to show the galaxy what your species is truly capable of. Felt her heart rate increase slightly. What kind of opportunity? There is a competition held every 10 years called the Crucible. It brings together the finest young warriors from every major power in the galaxy. The challenges are brutal, the stakes are high, and the winners are remembered for centuries. It is the ultimate test of military ability. I've heard of it. The qualifying rounds start next month. Correct, and I am nominating you to represent the United Earth Alliance. Slight pulsed again. You will be the first human to ever compete. If you succeed, if you place well in the Crucible, you will prove that humanity is not prey to be hunted or pests to be exterminated. You will prove that you are equals, perhaps even superiors. Was quiet for a moment, processing the implications. The Crucible was legendary. Species that won it gained prestige, influence, respect. Species that competed poorly were diminished in the eyes of the galaxy. If she failed, she wouldn't just embarrass herself. She would set humanity back generations. And if I refuse, she asked, then someone else will be chosen, someone who may not be as capable as you, someone who may fail where you might have succeeded. The director's voice was gentle but firm. I am not forcing you. This is a choice. But I believe it is the right choice, and I believe you are the right person to make it. Looked out the transparent walls at the stars. So many worlds out there, so many species, so many beings who looked at humanity and saw nothing worth respecting. She thought about her home, about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea that their future was being decided in places like this. She thought about lying in a pool of his own blood, looking up at her with fear in his eyes. I'll do it, she said. The director made a sound that might have been approval. Excellent. You will need to form a team. The Crucible requires squads of 5. I suggest you choose carefully. I know who I want. Your fellow human Daniel Cole, I assume. Him, yes, and 3 others, non-humans. If the director had eyebrows, she would have raised them. That is unusual. Most species prefer to compete alongside their own kind. Most species don't need to prove that they can work with anyone. We do. Stood, her decision made. I'm going to build a team that no one expects, and we're going to win. She left the director's office with the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt exactly right. The stars outside the station were beautiful, countless points of light in the endless dark. Somewhere out there, species that had never heard of Earth were going about their lives, unaware that everything was about to change. Smiled as she walked back toward the human quarters. She had a lot of work to do. The first step in building her team was making a list of potential candidates. spent the next several days observing her classmates, studying their performance in training, watching how they interacted with others. She was looking for specific qualities: skill, obviously, but also adaptability, intelligence, and most importantly, the ability to work with beings very different from themselves. Most students at the academy were deeply tribal. They sat with their own species, trained with their own species, socialized with their own species. The only respected other, the looked down on anyone who showed emotion. The Tellurites literally couldn't communicate with carbon-based without technological assistance. But there were exceptions. There were always exceptions. Found her first recruit in the engineering lab. Her name was, and she was one of the bioluminescent beings who communicated through patterns of light. They were generally considered non-combatants by the rest of the galaxy, too fragile for direct fighting, better suited for support roles and technical work. They were brilliant engineers and scientists, but not warriors. Was different. Had watched her in the arena competing against a twice her size. They had no chance in a straight fight, everyone knew that, but hadn't fought straight. She had used the environment, the lighting, the terrain, turning every disadvantage into an advantage until her opponent was so confused and frustrated that he made a fatal mistake. She had won through intelligence and creativity, not strength. Approached her after class, speaking through the translation device that converted light speech into standard galactic. "You're right, from the engineering track." This body flickered with colors that indicated curiosity and caution. "I am, and you are Morgan, the human who killed the—" "That's me, can we talk?" They found a quiet corner of the common area, away from prying eyes and ears. Bioluminescence dimmed, a sign of attentiveness. "I'm putting together a team for the Crucible," said. "I want you on it." The colors that flashed across his body suggested surprise, confusion, and disbelief all at once. "Me. But I am. We do not compete in such things." "Exactly. No one will expect you. No one will know how to counter you. And from what I've seen, you're one of the people at this academy. Smart perhaps, but weak, fragile. I cannot fight like you can." "I don't need another fighter. I need a tactical mind. Someone who can see patterns, find weaknesses, turn disadvantages into advantages." Leaned forward. "I need someone like you." Was quiet for a long moment, her colors shifting through a complex sequence that couldn't interpret. Finally, she spoke. "Why would you want a team of different species? It would be easier to work with your own kind. You understand each other. You think the same way." "That's exactly why I don't want it. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our bodies or our technology. It's our ability to adapt, to work with anyone, to integrate new ideas and methods. I want to demonstrate that. I want to show the galaxy that humans can lead diverse teams to victory. And if we fail, then we fail together, but I don't plan on failing." More shifting colors. Then slowly, his body settled into a pattern that's translator identified as agreement. "Very well, Morgan. I will join your team. If nothing else, it will be interesting." Smiled. "Call me, and trust me, it'll be more than interesting." Her second recruit was harder to convince. His name was, and he was one of the four-armed reptilian warriors who had founded the academy thousands of years ago. They were among the most respected military species in the galaxy, with a tradition of honor and excellence that stretched back. Was also, despite his impressive lineage, something of an outcast. Had noticed him early in the semester, sitting alone in the cafeteria while others clustered together. She had done some research and learned that came from a disgraced family, one whose honor had been stained by some ancient scandal that society refused to forgive or forget. He was as capable as any warrior at the academy, maybe more so, but no one would work with him. He trained alone, studied alone, lived alone. The weight of his family's shame was an invisible barrier that kept everyone away. Found him in the library, reading ancient texts on military strategy. He looked up when she approached, his 4 yellow eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Human," he said. His voice was a low rumble like distant thunder. She replied, sitting down across from him, "I'm Morgan." "I know who you are. Everyone knows who you are." He returned his attention to his reading. "What do you want?" "I want you on my Crucible team." Went very still. His 4 hands, which had been holding slowly set it down on the table. "Is this a joke? Do I look like I'm joking?" "You look like someone who does not understand culture. My family is disgraced. To associate with me is to share in that disgrace. No one will respect a team that includes me. No one will." "I don't care about your family," interrupted. "I care about your skills. I've watched you train. You're better than anyone else in our class, maybe anyone at this academy. But no one gives you a chance because of something that happened before you were born. Something that cannot be undone. I'm not asking you to undo it. I'm asking you to prove it doesn't matter. Come with me to the Crucible, fight beside me, win beside me. And when we stand on that victory platform, no one will remember your family's shame. They'll only remember your glory." Stared at her for a long time. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought among his kind. "You truly believe we can win?" he finally asked. "I believe we have a chance, which is more than anyone else is offering you." He was silent again, weighing her words, calculating the risks and rewards with the cold logic his species was famous for. Then he reached out with his upper right hand, the traditional gesture of agreement. "Very well, Morgan. I will join your team. May we bring glory to each other's names." Clasped his hand firmly. "May we bring terror to everyone else's." The 3rd member of her team found her. Was returning to her quarters late one night when she noticed a shadow that didn't quite move the way shadows should. She stopped, her hand drifting toward the knife she always carried, and waited. The shadow detached itself from the wall and became a figure, tall and impossibly thin, with skin like polished onyx and eyes that glowed faint purple. A Void Walker. Had heard of them but never seen one. The Void Walkers were an ancient species, possibly older than who had mastered the art of moving between dimensions. They could step into shadows and emerge elsewhere, could see things that other species couldn't perceive, could kill without ever being seen. They were also, according to every source had ever read, completely neutral in galactic affairs. They didn't join teams, didn't compete in tournaments, didn't involve themselves in the petty conflicts of younger species. Yet here one was, standing in front of her. "Morgan," the Void Walker said. Its voice was like whispers in an empty room. "We have been watching you." "Who is we?" "Those of us who see potential, those who recognize the patterns of change when they emerge." The Void Walker tilted its head. "You are a catalyst, human. You will reshape this galaxy, whether you intend to or not." Kept her hand near her knife. "That's nice. What do you want?" "To help you, to guide you, to ensure that the reshaping goes in a direction favorable to all." "And how do you plan to do that?" The Void Walker smiled, or at least its face shifted in a way that suggested a smile. "By joining your team." Blinked. "You want to compete in the Crucible. The Void Walkers have never. There is a first time for everything, and these are unprecedented times." The being extended one long, dark hand. "My name is Nexus. I offer you my skills, my knowledge, and my loyalty. Accept them, and you will have an advantage that no other team has ever possessed." Considered the offer. Having a Void Walker on her team would be a massive advantage, but it would also draw attention from powers she didn't fully understand. There would be consequences she couldn't predict. Then again, that was true of everything she was doing. She took the hand. It was cold, like touching ice water. "Welcome to the team, Nexus. Try not to be too creepy." "I will make no promises." The 4th and final member of her team, came to her attention during a training exercise gone wrong. It was a search and rescue simulation, teams of students navigating a dangerous environment to locate and extract wounded soldiers. The group had found their objective and was heading back to base when the ceiling collapsed. It wasn't supposed to happen. A glitch in the simulation, a malfunction in the safety systems. Something had gone wrong and suddenly they were trapped in a pocket of virtual rubble with air running out and no obvious escape. Most of the team panicked, even felt a spike of genuine fear, because the neural interface made everything feel real, including the crushing weight of the debris and the thinning atmosphere. But one member of the team stayed calm. A Tellurite named Vex, one of the crystalline beings who processed information differently from organic species. While everyone else was shouting and scrambling, Vex was analyzing, calculating, finding patterns in the rubble. "There," Vex said, pointing with a faceted limb. "That support beam is the key. If we remove it carefully at precisely a 47-degree angle, the rubble above will shift and create an opening." No one listened. They were too panicked, too focused on immediate survival to trust the strange crystalline being. Except, she pushed through the group, grabbed the support beam, and followed Vex's instructions exactly. The rubble shifted, a gap appeared, and they escaped with seconds to spare before the simulation declared them all dead. Afterward sought Vex out. "That was impressive," she said. "How did you know that would work?" Vex's crystal form pulsed with internal light. "I calculated the stress patterns. The probability of success was approximately 83%, higher than any other available option. And if you had been wrong, then we would have died, but the calculation was correct, so we did not." Laughed, she couldn't help it. The Tellurite's absolute confidence in mathematics was somehow charming. "I'm forming a team for the Crucible," she said. "I'd like you to be part of it." Vex was silent for a moment, processing. This is unexpected. Tellurites are not typically sought for combat teams. Neither are, or disgraced, or void walkers. I'm not looking for typical. What are you looking for? Thought about it. People who see things differently. People who can find solutions where others only see problems. People who don't fit the mold. She met Vex's crystalline eyes. People like you. Vex considered this for what felt like a long time, but was probably only a few seconds. "Your reasoning is sound," the Tellurite finally said. "I accept." And so's team was complete. 5 beings from 5 different species, each with unique abilities and perspectives, united by a shared goal, to prove that the galaxy was wrong about all of them. Danny, the human seal who fought with precision and determination. The engineer who turned every weakness into a weapon. The disgraced who had something to prove to everyone, including himself. Nexus, the mysterious void walker with abilities that bent the rules of reality. And Vex, the Tellurite calculator who saw probabilities where others saw chaos. Led by Morgan, the woman who had already killed one legend and was about to create another. The Crucible was approaching, and they had a lot of work to do. Training began immediately. Pushed her team hard, harder than any of them expected. They trained in simulations, in the gym, in classrooms and laboratories. They studied each other's species, learning strengths and weaknesses, finding ways to complement and compensate. It wasn't easy. They argued constantly in those first weeks. Rigid discipline clashed with creative improvisation. Nexus's cryptic statements frustrated Danny's preference for clear communication. Vex's tendency to reduce everything to statistics annoyed everyone at different times. But slowly, painfully, they began to function as a unit. Learned that discipline could be an anchor, keeping the team focused when chaos threatened. She discovered that creativity was unleashed when she felt trusted and supported. She found that Nexus's mysterious hints often contained crucial insights if you knew how to interpret them. She realized that Vex's calculations, while seemingly cold, were actually a form of caring, an attempt to maximize everyone's chances of survival. And Danny, reliable Danny, was the glue that held them all together. His steady presence and quick humor diffused tensions, built bridges, made the impossible team feel almost like family. By the time the Crucible qualifiers arrived, they were ready. Or at least, they were as ready as they would ever be. The qualifiers were held at a massive station near the galactic core, a neutral venue where thousands of teams gathered to compete for a handful of spots in the main event. The competition was brutal and efficient, a series of challenges designed to eliminate the weak and identify the strong. His team passed the first round easily, navigating a hazardous environment that killed or incapacitated most of their competitors. The second round was harder, a tactical puzzle that required them to coordinate perfectly under pressure. The third round was a direct combat scenario against another team, which ended with holding their opponent's leader at while accepted his surrender. Each victory drew more attention, a human-led team of misfits and outcasts, defeating established warriors from powerful species. The media began to take notice. The other competitors began to worry. And they began to plan. Learned about it from Nexus, who had overheard things while walking through shadows where he shouldn't have been. "They are going to sabotage you," the Void Walker reported during a private meeting in quarters. "They have made arrangements with some of the other teams. During the final qualifying round, you will face coordinated opposition from multiple directions." How many teams? At least 3, possibly more. Processed this information calmly. She had expected something like this. They hadn't forgotten or forgiven what she had done too. Can we avoid it? No, the round is structured to funnel all competitors into the same area. Conflict is inevitable. Then we'll have to fight through it, turn to the rest of her team. Get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be rough. The final qualifying round was a capture-the-flag scenario on a simulated war-torn planet. Each team had to defend their own flag while attempting to capture at least 2 others. The team with the most captures at the end of the time limit would advance. His team started strong, using Nexus's shadow-walking ability to scout enemy positions and Vex's calculations to optimize their route. They captured their first flag within the first hour, a quick strike that left the opposing team stunned and leaderless. But then the trap sprung. As they approached their second target, noticed movement in the surrounding terrain that shouldn't have been there. Her instincts, honed by years of training and combat, screamed a warning. Ambush everyone down. Pulse fire erupted from 3 directions simultaneously. His team scattered, taking cover behind whatever was available. It was a coordinated assault from at least 20 combatants, way more than any single team should have. They were playing dirty. "Options," shouted over the chaos. "Retreat is possible," Vex calculated, "but probability of capture falls to less than 10%. Holding position will get us killed," added, his pulse rifle spitting return fire. "Then we don't retreat and we don't hold." Made a decision in that moment, the kind of decision that either won battles or ended wars. "We attack." "Attack," Danny sounded incredulous. "There are 4 times as many of them." 5, Nexus corrected, emerging from a shadow nearby. "I counted, but is correct. They expect us to defend or flee. An attack will confuse them." Said, "Can you overload their communications?" "Give me 30 seconds. "Do it," Danny suppressing fire, "keep their heads down. Nexus, find me their command structure. Vex, calculate the optimal assault vector." Already done. Northwest approach, 40 degrees from current position, exploiting the gap between their second and third fire teams. "Perfect," gripped her pulse rifle. "On my mark we punch through." The next 30 seconds were the longest of her life. Enemy fire crackled around them, scorching the ground, punching holes in their cover. roared a war cry as he sent concentrated bursts toward the largest concentration of enemies. Danny moved like water, precise shots taking down anyone who exposed themselves. Then signaled success. The enemy communications dissolved into static. Now shouted. They charged. It was chaos, but controlled chaos. Led the assault, moving in the exact direction Vex had calculated, finding the gap in the enemy line before they could adjust. Was beside her, 4 arms wielding 2 weapons, a whirlwind of destruction. Danny covered their flank, provided electronic warfare support, and Nexus appeared and disappeared like a ghost, disrupting and disorienting. They punched through the ambush line in less than a minute. Behind them, the confused enemy teams were shooting at each other, unable to coordinate without communications, unable to distinguish friend from foe. His team kept moving. They didn't stop until they had captured their second flag, and then their third. When the round ended, they had the highest score of any team in the qualifiers. The announcement came that evening. Morgan's team had qualified for the Crucible. Stood on the observation deck of the station, looking out at the stars, when found her. He approached slowly, his body language non-threatening. His hand went to her knife anyway. "Relax, human," said. His voice was different than before, less arrogant, more measured. "I did not come to fight." "Then what did you come for?" He stood beside her, looking out at the same stars. In the weeks since their battle, she had heard that he had changed. Withdrawn from his companions, stopped boasting, started training with a new intensity. "I came to warn you," he said. "My people are afraid of you, afraid of what you represent. They will not stop trying to destroy you." "I know. You know, but you do not understand. The Crucible is dangerous, more dangerous than anything you have faced. The challenges are real, people die, and my people will make sure the most dangerous challenges are directed at you." Turned to face him. "Why are you telling me this? Why help me?" Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was almost soft. "Because you showed me something in that arena. You showed me that everything I believed about strength was wrong. I thought I was powerful because of my body, my claws, my teeth. But you destroyed me with nothing but your mind and your will." He met her eyes, and she saw something there that she hadn't expected. Humility, growth, respect. "I was arrogant," he continued. "I was cruel. I wanted to humiliate you because I could not accept that a prey species might be my equal. But you are not my equal, Morgan. You are my superior, and I owe you a debt for teaching me that lesson." Didn't know what to say. This was not the enemy she had expected. "The Crucible is coming," said. "Be ready, be ruthless. Show the galaxy what I already know." He paused. "Show them that humans are not prey." He turned and walked away, leaving alone with the stars and a new understanding of the war she was fighting. It wasn't just about winning competitions. It wasn't just about proving humanity's worth. It was about changing minds, one at a time if necessary. She watched the stars for a long time, thinking about the battles to come. Then she went to find her team. They had a lot of work to do.